Okay, good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Chris Karson. I'm a partner at Metro City Property Group and Northern Alliance, and I try to concentrate on commercial realty. I've been in the business, in the real estate business for 15 years now, and in construction and land development for a lifetime. So anyway, feel free to stop at any time and ask me questions. This training is for you guys, so I want everybody to um, get something out of it. If you feel like you've got a question, don't hesitate. Everybody's in the same page here. We're just working together to try to better ourselves and figure things out. So hopefully there's a few things that I can learn from you. We're always open to suggestions and conversation. So I'll get right into it. What we're doing today is discussing um, geoOttawa and other GIS mapping systems. And I recognize already that we've got some people from Kingston, we've got some people from Toronto, and we've got some people from Ottawa. So right off the bat, the geoOttawa discussion is basically just a general discussion of what we call GIS mapping systems. Um, and these mapping systems, I know Kingston has their own mapping system. Toronto has a similar GIS mapping system. They can all be found by Googling let's your area and then GIS mapping. So Toronto GIS mapping. If you're up in Renfrew, you can Google Renfrew GIS mapping. Any municipality that you're working in or trying to find information about property, you can Google the name and then the GIS mapping system. You'll eventually get to it. You might have to go to the municipal website and search under the planning department or something of that nature, planning or business, and you'll eventually make your way to the GIS mapping systems. And that's what we're here today to discuss. What GIS mapping systems are they're systems online that help gather all the data in one place and allow us to access that data. They're organized mainly through mapping tools, online mapping similar to Google Earth or Google Maps. Those are examples of GIS mapping systems. But we can go into the individual municipal mapping systems and gather layer information about properties to help us gather demographic information, environmental data, zoning, all sorts of different things that we're going to discuss to educate ourselves on property, further evaluate them, and try to be as knowledgeable as we can be to help ourselves assess property and help our clients. So that's in a nutshell, that's what a GIS mapping system is. They're used by the general public and real estate professionals alike. And most of these systems that we're going to be discussing are not proprietary. They are open to the public. So geoOttawa, it'll be the baseline of what I keep talking about for discussion today. But that is a system that is public and anybody can use it. So, but despite being public, there is not a ton of people that know how to use it properly. Realtors as well. And I think it's a key function, a key tool for us to use to gather information about these properties and really understand what it is that we're looking at. It's very valuable when it comes to land. It's valuable when it comes to rural properties, even urban properties when we're trying to look for services, zoning. It's valuable for every piece of property that's out there. So I think it's a vital skill for us to have, and one that I encourage you to use on a regular basis. Anytime that I'm gathering evidence or looking up a property, I'm going to some form of GIS mapping system and looking at further information to make sure I know everything about the property that I can. So I think at this stage, what I'll do is I will share my screen and go to, I'll go right to geoOttawa. Can everybody see my screen here? Somebody give me a nod or a yes or a thumbs up. Mike's nodding, thank you. And a thumbs up. Okay. So this is the logon to geoOttawa. If you were to Google Ottawa and click the link, this is where you're going to enter the site. Once you set your geoOttawa up, it usually caches memory. I don't know if that's the right term, but I'm sure it uses cookies and cache to store, some of your last selections. So you won't, you'll be able to personalize it a little bit. But when you first log on, it might look something. And what we'll do is I'll just bring you through a little bit of the navigation. You can zoom in and out, obviously, just like any other map. And I'll go right to some of the important parts. This bar here on the top right is going to be where you're going to navigate the majority of the site. This eye here is an information tool that will help you understand if you forget some of the links from today or some of these tabs, if you will, on the right. This information tool will help you navigate through it a little bit and understand. But something I'm going to do first and foremost is turn on the base map gallery. I'm going to turn on, you can turn it on with roads or without roads. I'm just going to I'll go without roads at this point in time, but this is basically just satellite imagery of the city, and that helps me with visual representation. I do a lot of searching from the sky, let's say, with these overviews. Like, I'm going to add roads there, and this helps me in searching and visualizing where I am. I can already start to see some of the density. You can see some of the gray areas of more dense housing and start to pick up land features. Obviously, there's some farmland over in the west end of Ottawa, and there's different green spaces, and that imagery help you speed things up in property. The next thing we're going to do, and this is probably the most important part of the whole scenario, is these layers. Understanding that there's layers that you can activate, you can turn on and off. And these layers are what allow us to see or not see key elements of property. In this particular layer, I'm turning on zoning. I'm always going to have zoning on. I'm always going to have property parcels on. And then the majority of the other features that we're going to use are under the planning tab. And so I'm going to turn planning on, but I want everybody to pay attention really to my screen and see if you can see this small arrow beside planning. And what I need to do to access the planning and what's hidden underneath it is expand that sublayer by clicking on that small little arrow, and you'll see all of these sublayers are hidden underneath within the planning section. And basically, there's some very important ones like natural systems here, which also has its own sublayer. And I've got to turn on, if I want to see wetlands, I have to turn on unevaluated wetlands and natural systems, and also the parent tab of planning. If any of those, and you'll notice as I'm clicking on and off planning, if any of those aren't checked, those that information won't show up. So I've always got planning on. Under natural systems, I'm looking at unevaluated wetlands, the regulation limits of those wetlands and floodplains. I'll go into further detail in some of my environmental trainings. For this purpose, I want to get through all sorts of the information on geoOttawa and these GIS mapping systems. So I won't explain everything to do with floodplains, wetlands, and regulation limits, but this is vital environmental information, and you can understand now if you're looking at rural property, it's important to know where those wetlands are. If you're just looking at a regular mapping system or the land registry, you're not going to be able to identify those wetlands without some type of a system. So I'm just toggling on and off, these natural systems and wetlands and regulation limits, all under the planning category. So you right away are able to see, how important that may be. It's if you've got a client looking for a rural property, and this happens to be the property that they're looking at, you would otherwise not be able to identify with ease, anyways, some of these vital components about them. So the red lines that you see on your screen are the different zoning parcels. If anybody has any information, if they've been using their local GIS mapping systems from Kingston or Toronto, feel free to let me know how these may differ. But in geoOttawa, you'll notice these red lines are zoning lines. And if you click on a parcel anywhere, just left click, it'll show you everything. It'll outline everything that's attached to that parcel that has the same zoning. I just happened to click on RU zoning, and this brings us to a incredibly important topic. Right here, when I click on it, it will give me the link to the bylaw text, meaning I'm going to go ahead and click that. It'll link me to the City of Ottawa's bylaw site that shows where that zoning information actually is. It brought me into part 13 of the zone, which happens to start at agricultural. But if I go back to geoOttawa and I know that I'm looking at the RU zone, I'll scroll down until I find RU. They're alphabetical, so I'll keep going until I find the start of the RU zone, and then I can scroll down that zone from there. And RU. So here's the start of the RU zone right here, rural countryside, and that's where I'm going to gather all the information that I need for permitted uses and everything that I want to know if I'm a buyer or a seller of property, and what I do. The CBRU zone is more based towards rural usage, but every zone is going to be different. And this is where you can gather your minimum lot sizes, find out if that would be valuable if we're looking for properties that we're looking to sever. All the information on what could be done in that zone or any of the subzones can be found here, and it all kind of starts with knowing where to search for them, knowing how to identify the zone of a particular property. So you'll notice when we clicked on that this property, it brought the zone up. It may or may not bring you right to the zone. Sometimes if you click on a parcel, it'll ask you if you want a property report. Right now, it doesn't seem to be doing that, but I'll click off. I'll go in until you can zoom in, and it might take you zooming in a little bit further to see the property parcels. See those yellow lines just popped up? You might have to zoom in to see the actual property parcels, and that's when I'll toggle zoning back on there, but that's when you click on it, it'll give you a couple different options. See how it didn't go right into the zone at that point? It brought me up a page that asks if I want a property report or if I want the parcel's geometry. But this is what I want you to see right here. There's a little triangle in the top right that allows me to toggle over to the zone or stay on the property parcels category. I can click on the property report. It'll bring me more information about that parcel. Or I can toggle over and get to the zone. So it's important to know that you may have to zoom in to get further data. As I zoom out, I lose those property parcel lines, and it might just show me more general zoning information. Okay, so we've gone through a few things, layer panels, whatever you've got on, whatever you've got toggled on, and your whatever layers that you've got turned on, you can always look at what how they're represented by looking at the legend. So this right here is a legend, and anything that I've got toggled on will show up in that legend. Obviously, there's hundreds, if not thousands of other categories, but these are the only ones that I've got turned on right now. So if I zoom in, it'll show, I can see where some of these features are. If I look at this solid blue, I can see that they're unevaluated wetlands. If I see the black hatched area, I understand that there are regulation limits. Red is zoning boundaries. There's heritage designations that could be identified, and that's all found within the legend. And you actually notice that as I zoom in, certain layers are automatically turned on. If I zoom out, the heritage and the village residential overlays automatically get turned off. And so anything that you're looking at on the screen, you can always go to the legend and figure out what it is that you're looking at. You can always look for a parcel, using the map like this and navigate through the streets or from key features and landmarks. But you can also go to the search function here and search for a property. Does anybody today have a property within the city of Ottawa that they're interested in more information about, or have something interesting to show and want to search?
I have that one I sent you the other day that just looked into.
Do you remember the address?
I just have it up on Geo. Give me a second.
Sure.
There is no address. Damn it. Okay. Sorry, buddy.
All good.
It's so if you go to the corner of Maryville and Prince of Wales, I can show you exactly where it is.
See if Maryville Road pops up. Maryville Gardens Park.
So if you go right to where Maryville meets Prince of Wales, there's the RCMP headquarters, and then there's a bunch of land around it.
Am I right there now? I'm at Hunt Club.
You're gonna have to go
north,
south.
So all these maps are set up northeast, southwest, by the way, north being straight up. I'm on Woodruff. Prince of Wales. How am I doing here, Mike?
Yeah, you're right there. Okay, so see Lycan Drive where the RCMP, is your computer? Yeah, you had it.
We got a little bit of lag going on, I think. Is this here?
Yeah, so see where there's like two pieces of land as you go, I guess it would be back towards the city, so north. Just a little bit north. 2876 and 2866.
Maryville?
No, that's the tag on the parcel.
Oh, 2876. Did you just see it?
Yep. So let it load right where you were.
Mm-hmm.
2876. There's a little yellow tag on it. That one there.
Okay.
So that's the property. It's 30. There's a couple other parcels in the package, but there's 30 acres for sale. And it's for sale by owner.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of real time. I haven't seen this parcel before. I know Mike mentioned it to me, but I didn't look it up. So right now we can assess this property. Obviously, we can see its proximity to other parcels. I'm assuming this is a piece of development land. So right now I'm checking the zoning. Um, the zone is DR, and that's a good zone. The zone is it's development reserve is the actual zone, and the purpose of this zone in all honesty, I know that there's some permitted uses within the zone. Home, the urban agriculture. There's different provisions within the zone, but really, this zone is what they put as a placeholder for future development. So this DR zone tells me that the city's looking to change that zone. We have to determine whether it's for future residential. It might be better suited for industrial, but right now I'm seeing that it's surrounded by agriculture, I believe. Um, so let's see some of these zones around it. IL in IL is light industrial. Um, this is probably ag. Yeah, agricultural, light industrial, and there's some residential around it too. So that's a really interesting parcel. It might have some industrial potential. It might have some residential potential. Uh, Agriculture is not the most valuable, highest and best use. So I would assume it's going to be one of the others. That's some other things that I can think of to look for are services. So this is brings us to another great use of a GIS mapping system. I can look to see whether or not there's services, because when I'm talking about services, it's water and sewer capacity, water and sewer supply. And so I'll turn on wastewater and water infrastructure, and that will, if you see some of these red and green lines, that tells me what if there's sewer and water close by. We can go back to our legend, and I see that red is sanitary sewers, green is storm sewers. Those are obviously, the sanitary is very important when it comes to building homes. If we and it appears that there are some nearby sanitary sewers, and not to the north, but more to the east and south. And you can actually see that there's direction on these sanitary lines. So this particular sanitary line looks like it terminates here, but it's got a direction on it. You'll see these sanitary lines. They have to go somewhere. Not exactly sure where this one terminates. Maybe it's to a pumping station or something. But there looks to be some sanitary nearby. This particular one looks like it's the start of a sanitary system. So there's potential that if somebody were to purchase this parcel, they could link up right here to the sanitary and the sewer. And it also appears that there's a blue, let's see this blue line in the road, that is water main. So that's water supply, public water supply. And that's obviously good for a development parcel. If there's water and storm and sanitary nearby, that could very well be a valuable piece. So good find, Mike. Let's chase that property a little bit more, but yeah, now the whole world knows about it. We're gonna have to do it quickly. Anyway, so those are some other uses. We can see how close the parcel gets to the regulated limit from the river floodplain, but I don't notice any other environmental wetland on the parcel. We've got wetlands being shown here, and there's none on this property, so it looks to be clear of environmental potential hazards at or pitfalls from development. So that's a great example of a property and the information that we can quickly find to assess the property and its value. Good. We can see property ownership boundaries on there as well. Everybody in this room is likely a realtor, so I think it's probably more important to go right onto the land registry through GeoWarehouse to find, the boundary limits of property and ownership and that sort of thing. But for the general public, this is a great place for them to be able to look and see where property lines are. You can see these yellow lines are property parcels. So there's some protected areas that can be found on this above and beyond the wetlands and floodplains. You might be into some forested areas, or you'll see a zone pop up that's these can all be identified through these mapping systems. There's some a ton of other information that can be found here. I'll just kind of scroll through a few. Sometimes it takes me a minute to find exactly what I'm looking for, but there's things that we can identify here, like heritage. If I turn on the heritage layer, you'll actually, this is a good example. You'll see when I've got too much information on, the screen becomes crazy mess and it's hard to identify what I'm looking for. I'm going to go ahead and turn off water and wastewater information and get back to kind of the information that I'm looking for at the time. So I'll go to anybody remember the address for our new Maple Grove listing? I'll find it.
1837. Sorry.
All good. Thank you. So you'll see here I turned on heritage. And we see a little blue dot right here. So I toggle it on and off. So we can go back to our layer list, legend, and see that particular property is in the heritage registration. It's not designated. So that gives us some information about the heritage component of certain properties. There's all sorts of different heritage districts that can be located on this system, and very valuable to have this information and understand it. If you're into agriculture, there's something here that you see called LEAR, and if you're looking for an agricultural parcel, the LEAR system is a system that's used, and you see what happened when I identified it, but the LEAR system is a rating system that the the municipality and I believe the province use to rate agricultural land. And you can go into the legend, believe, and check out the Lear system and what that means, what you're looking at. And there's some of the land that is more valuable than others, from an agricultural perspective. And this might help you to identify if you were going to try to change the zone of an agricultural parcel, whether or not it might be feasible. If it's a very valuable piece of land from an agricultural perspective and has a very high Lear score, it's going to be harder to change that zone than a fallow agricultural parcel, if you will. So the Lear system is key to figuring out whether the value of the farmland. There's other things that we can see that I'll just click on. This is an endless exercise because there's so much information here, but I'll show you guys where the urban boundary is. If you're looking at the city, that's the urban boundary of the city. Anything beyond that boundary is considered rural. And there's different, parcel rights to parcels designated as urban versus rural. Once a parcel has come into the urban boundary, then the city's basically agreed to service that area with water and sewer and apply a higher allowable density to it. And those parcels, by nature of that, are more valuable, and have different rights. There's village boundaries that we can toggle on and off. You can see the actual villages. My favorite over here in the West End is Carp. And then you can see all of the other rural villages in the city and their boundaries. So I can go into Manotick or Greeley, and I can zoom right in and see where the actual village boundaries are, and those serve the function similar to the urban boundary, where once it's come into the village, the city has all but agreed to make sure that those village boundary properties get serviced and have different allowable similar densities and so forth. So very important stuff to understand where the urban boundaries are, the village boundaries. I'll toggle those off, and you can actually see where the city boundary is. So I click on that civil. Most of these, again, are under the planning tab. So I've got to have that planning sublayer opened up, but I can toggle the city boundary on and off, and you'll see a faint red line. Right now we're in the West End. I know that line is actually on Golden Line, but you'll see the actual line of the city limit. You'll notice that the mapping doesn't really go past that, but there's an actual line. You'll be able to tell whether a parcel of land is inside the city or outside the city based on that city boundary limit. And they're usually oriented on roads. This West End happens to be Golden Line. That's the limit in the West End, but you can look at other areas in the city and see that actual city boundary. I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible, but obviously there's an endless amount of information here. I'm going to show you the Conservation Authority boundaries. This is another valuable piece of information. You'll notice the City of Ottawa has 3 conservation authorities that govern all the land. Every parcel, probably in Canada, I would suspect, but any of the organized municipalities anyways, are all governed by some type of conservation authority that is in charge of the land from an environmental perspective. And you'll see the 3 different colors within Ottawa represent Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, Rideau Valley and South Nation River Conservation Authorities. And you can look up the property parcel, zoom right into it, and see which of the conservation authorities govern that land. So if you do happen to find some environmental features on the land, like wetland or floodplain, it's important to also go to the websites, which are other GIS mapping systems of those particular conservation authorities. So I'm just going to open a new tab, and I'm going to go right to just an example of we'll go to the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, and let's let that GIS mapping system load. You'll notice that I always keep um, uh, shortcuts, if you will, and bookmarks to all these systems because I use them regularly in all the different jurisdictions. So here is the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority's GIS mapping system, and you'll notice that I can now find some information outside of the city of Ottawa. And this is what we have to do when we're working outside the city of Ottawa is find the other GIS mapping systems that are available to us. In this case, I'm looking at Kempville, and you'll notice a very similar type of system. I've got options for layers and different imagery tools up on the top right section here. Sometimes they're on the left, like they could be oriented any way. But here is a tool that I can use in North Grenville, Kempville, anywhere in the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority's jurisdiction to look up similar information for it's certainly for environmental in this one, because this is a conservation authority's website. I can see marshland and floodplains and all sorts of different systems that exist. You might not find zoning information on some of those parcels. You might have to go to the particular municipalities' websites to find zoning, but I don't know if it's slow to load on your screen, but you can see here in South Gore, just above Kempville, we've got all the similar floodplain and wetland information, drainage, municipal drains, all sorts of information that we can find here on the individual conservation authorities mapping systems. I can't stress enough how valuable all this is. Coming back to like a realty standpoint, our goal is to provide value to our clients. And I can tell you hundreds of times where a client has asked me about a particular property. I've pulled up a GIS mapping system and taken some information from it, taken a screenshot from it, showed them a parcel and showed them that it's covered in floodplain, send them an email with a quick description of the floodplain and what they're looking at on the screenshot that I've given them. And that is incredibly valuable. And time again, I get a response like, "Oh my God, no one's ever sent me this information before, and thank you." And as soon as you show them value like that, your clients are going to love you for it. They will continue to use you. They'll trust you, and they'll know that you're digging deep to find everything for them and protect their best interests. So this stuff is incredibly valuable. As far as I'm concerned, you need it, and you need to understand how to find this information. It's not that hard. It takes you going into the different areas and finding the different mapping tools and getting familiar with them. But once you're familiar with them, I can go onto these mapping systems and very quickly gather this information, send it off, and it's incredibly powerful. So I encourage you all to use these systems religiously. So I'll go back to geoOttawa, and I'm sure Kingston and Toronto are organized similar to geoOttawa, where there's there's an incredible amount of data. You'll notice that in the RVCA, the layer list is not nearly as comprehensive. It's you've got you've got some categories, but not nearly the amount as will be available on the City of Ottawa's GeoOttawa site. So if you're not working in one of the large major cities, Kingston, Ottawa, Toronto, you'll have to go to you may have to use some of the municipal GIS mapping systems. They may not be quite as organized. You might have to dig a little bit deeper to find the information that you're looking for, and you may even have to call the municipality to gather some of that information and fact check what it is that you're actually looking for. So moving on, I'll turn off conservation authorities. You can see that the conservation authorities extend past the City of Ottawa, and they go all the way down and above and around those conservation authority limits are other conservation authorities. They don't just end there. South of there, you're getting into Frontenac, which or Cataraqui, which is in the Kingston area. And north of there, you're starting to get into Renfrew. East of there is a little bit foreign. It's Quebec, and I try to stay out of that. I try to stay out of that jurisdiction when it comes to land. Obviously, we're licensed in Ontario. So anyway, so it's important to understand what information it is that you can find here. There's particular information that we can find on school zones. I'll see if I can quickly I'll turn off some of these layers and see if we can find school zones here. And the catchment area for school zones. It's here somewhere. I don't want to take too much time searching for it. I'll see. Does anybody know where school zones are? You can see the green belt. Okay. I can toggle on the green belt and you can see exactly where the green belt is located. Obviously, the green belt comes with a different set of property rights and restrictions for development within the green belt. Hospitals, you can identify where the hospitals are. Here's schools. So if I toggle on schools, I can zoom in to a property, can find the schools. It's taking a little while to load. There's quite a few schools in the city, and I think I'm taking up quite a bit of bandwidth. But there's the schools. Look at that. Identified all of the schools, the public schools, probably some of the other Catholic boards. There, you can see all the different schools, even the private schools, and their categories. That shows their catchment areas. If you click on the particular properties, you can see what catchment areas those properties reside in. This is incredibly powerful stuff when you're searching for families and understanding the catchment areas of the different school zones. Parks are located here. You can see where the parkland is. Transit services. You can see where there's bus terminals, train terminals. There's ways to find there's catchment areas, or you'll see. So this is all O-train stuff. There's ways to find the like a 600-meter buffer zones around these transit services. it's in another one of these areas. If you look hard enough, you'll find it. And it's if I haven't shown you enough information yet about just how much information is on here, I don't know what you're looking for, because this is an incredible amount of information. There's this is something important to see. We go to draw and measure. I'll just zoom in on any random parcel. If we go to draw and measure, we can calculate distance and area. So I'll open the draw and measure tool, and you can measure distance. Know that, so you can select any one of these drawing modes. I can select the straight line tool. Down here, I can choose whether I want it in meters, yards, feet. So let's say this is a field. I can see that this field is 948 meters long. If I go back up and I choose one of these area tools here, I can determine whether I want it in acres, square meters. Take this entire field, determine that it's 171 acres, and you see all the dimensions along the outside that I've chosen. So these are good ways to, let's say I've got right down to the, let's just take a building. Let's say I'm looking at a building and I want to know the footprint, or I'm looking at a blank piece of land, and I want to know how much I can build there. If I go into the zoning and I find the setbacks and I calculate, the setbacks, I can come up with the, how much square footage I can build. So this particular building looks like a giant building. I'm gonna go into square feet. But whatever this building is that I'm looking at, I can go ahead and measure. Let's just take this one section of the building. 150,000 square feet is the footprint of that building. So you can calculate square footages, calculate theoretical building sizes, and all sorts of things. I can calculate how far a sewer line is from a property that I'm looking to develop. An incredible amount of information here. There's street views. You can often use some of the GIS mapping tools like GeoMaps, for instance, have street mapping tools. Some of the GIS mapping tools like GeoWarehouse, for instance, have these integrated street views where you can put the little character. No, it's taking a little bit of time to load, but you can take your little character and put it right on the street, and go ahead and take a drive around the street and know exactly what you're looking at within these mapping tools. This is a piece of land that I know is for sale. Instead of driving to Kingston or Toronto, I can just use these tools to roam around and site visit for property parcels or any other property information. So I always encourage everybody to cross-reference this data. If, like I said, if we find a piece of land that's got a floodplain on it, I would cross-reference this data with the conservation authorities, and if it's always prudent to call the actual municipality if you've got a question of zoning. But these I would use these religiously, even if you have a property that you think you know everything about it. Data is always changing. These floodplain lines change. The unevaluated wetlands, these lines change, and it's important to know that you're working with the most current information. And so I encourage you to use these religiously. And really, I know it's going the extra mile, and but you can imagine, not only is it the extra mile, how valuable it is, but let's say you sell a piece of land to somebody and you didn't know there was a wetland on it. It's up to us to know the particulars of the pieces of land that we're buying and selling, and this is a great way to do it. So if you don't know, ask the experts. If you identify a piece of floodplain or wetland, ask the experts, call the municipality, call the planning departments, and and double check your facts. But by doing all of this, we can make more informed decisions, help clients better understand their potential properties, and provide better value and real comprehensive real estate services here. So, okay, I'm long-winded and nobody else has spoken in about an hour. So, does anybody have any other properties that they want to discuss? Is there anything that they're currently looking for? Any questions with anything that I've been going over thus far?
I have a question for you, Chris.
Yep.
So let's say, like, what are your go-to data points that you would research? Let's say somebody's looking for a property in Ashton, or no, what would be, like, let's say Dunrobin, and then you want to look at like 5 key or 3 key data points that you always go to in this software that you think are valuable to the client for them to know when considering an offer.
Yeah, I mean,
like I could think of, the wetlands would be
for sure,
important there.
zoning,
Uh-huh.
wetlands, floodplain. These are definitely things that I'm looking for. Every parcel is a little bit different. If you're in the rural, you're talking about Dunrobin. Actually, I'll show you a really good one that. Oops, I'll show you a really. Did I just lose everybody? No.
No, here.
I'm going to show you a place to find well records. If you're in the country, it's nice to check the well records. And
I'm sorry, I have to run, but I just wanted to thank you for your time. And I wish I had have known this. I'm new, and I was dealing with one rural couple that I did sell their house for, and I wish I had have known this then. So thank you for your time, but I do have to run.
Anytime, call me anytime.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Okay, cheers. So for those of you still with us, I apologize if we're running out of time, but feel free to go anytime. If you look, all I did was Google well records Ontario, and it's just this is a form of a GIS mapping system. If you zoom in on the property, right now we're in Dunrobin. Check this out. This is all the well records. So let's say we find this particular property. I can go ahead and I can pick up the well record, and I can see the casing diameter. I can see how deep the well is, how many gallons a minute they So the first foot is clay, and then it's limestone to 40 feet. So I can see what the ground is made up of. This one should have a, maybe this is a bad example, but they should give you, so this one here, look at this. So the first 5 feet is sand, and from 5 to 40 feet is limestone. Then from 40 feet to 125 feet is gray black limestone, showing me the it's freshwater, the size of the casing. It'll show you the pumping tests where they've, how deep the pump was, recommended pump setting the pump at 115 feet. The gallons, it's going to show gallons per minute, the pumping rate, 3 gallons per minute, exactly where the well is in relation to the property on a sketch. So well records are definitely something that I'd be looking at in the country. Zoning, floodplains, wetlands, well records. Those are definitely a few key points. Obviously, you're going to try to find there's some septic records that you can find as well. Those are some obvious ones that I can think of in the rural countryside that I'll always end up checking.
Thank you, Chris. The well record thing, it's new news for me, so it's great.
That's an important one. Most people don't know that exists, but yeah, you can check any house that you have or that you can find that's got a well on it. There's record of it. Those wells that are dug are all tagged, and they submit those well reports into the ministry, and they're all on that municipal site, or it's a provincial site. Just Google Ontario well records.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Good. Anybody else? Can tell, I'm sure everybody's winding down and listening to me blabber on enough, but I can't stress enough how important these systems are. So I hope that everybody uses them, and feel free to give me a shout anytime if you've got questions. I haven't been paying attention to this chat here, but looks like most people are starting to log off. So thanks for joining us, and hope you all found this valuable, and I'll see you again next time.